Hello, welcome to Tigers, blah, blah, blah. Me, Luke Flanagan, and Rich Walker's my co-host. He's here.
Hello.
Hello. We've got Boaz Myhill today. Not had a keeper on before, have we?
No.
So this should be interesting.
And if you're going to start interviewing keepers, where better to start? In Hull City goalkeepers.
In the middle of our goal. That's where we're going to start, isn't it?
The only keeper that chant should be sung for. I've said it before and I'll say it again.
I'd agree with you 100%. You can never say it enough times.
No.
So, without further ado, Boaz Myhill.
Hello?
Hi, Boaz, you all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. You all right?
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
It's all right.
So I'm Luke, and then Rich is my co-host. You can hear him as well.
How are you, Bill? Are you all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, very good. I was a bit delayed then joining. My wife's just doing the, we have to do 4 miles every 4 hours.
No?
There's some mental challenge people are doing, aren't they? Because everyone's bored and that. She's just done the fifth one. You're supposed to have to do run 4 miles every 4 hours for a day straight.
Okay, right.
So she's got one more to do. She just walked in, so we was all just giving her a round of applause. I've got to do the last one at 12:30 tonight.
12:30 tonight. So is that how long you're going to stay with us then?
Yeah. If that's what you want, yeah. You won't have many listeners left by the time I bore them for that long, but yeah.
What's the cause? What's it for?
Oh, nothing. Just to prove I think she can do it. Really, more than anything else.
That is boredom.
Yeah.
I think isn't it to do with mind? I think I've seen it. It's where you run a certain amount of miles, and it's then you kind of post it on social media and you raise awareness of mental health sort of thing, isn't it?
Possibly. I'm not. I don't think that's why she's doing it though. I think I've some of the lads who I know who play football still are doing it for a cause. Right. I'm not entirely sure, but she just heard about it and went, "Oh, I'll have some of that."
And she roping you in with it as well.
She's done well she'll do well to get 4 miles out of me, to be honest.
Right, great stuff.
This is just audio only, yeah?
It's audio only, mate, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Whatever you're wearing, we can't see, so don't worry about that.
Nobody wants to look at us on a regular basis anyway, so...
Faces for podcasts.
Yeah, definitely.
Audio ones.
Right.
But yeah,
there you go, then. I've got my feet up now, then. Happy days.
Great stuff. Well, we usually just have beers or whatever we're drinking, and then it's just a bit surreal, really, just having a chat with people we used to watch from the terraces or watch from the KC, and it's great.
What age are you two, if you don't mind me asking?
We're both 34.
Oh, about my age then, not far off me. I'm a bit older.
So we have good memories of when you signed, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions we're going to ask. So I always let Rich do the first question because I have to do all the introductions, so I can just take a breath. So I'll pass over to you, Rich, and you can start the questions. So off you go, mate.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that we've spoken about, everybody that we've had on the podcast so far, Boaz, is kind of where they got the start in football. And obviously, you started your career at Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And, the first team goalkeepers that were there whilst you were a trainee at Villa were, the likes of Mark Bosnich and David James and Peter Schmeichel. I was just interested really to know whether or not you had any chance to kind of learn from them, because they are, massively successful goalkeepers in the Premier League era. Schmeichel particularly, arguably the greatest keeper of the Premier League era. So.
Yeah, definitely. The great thing about football's moved on a bit now, whereas like the job I do now, if you don't know, I work at West Brom. So this year's been my first year in coaching. I've actually been up in a fixture against Hull's under 23s this season, which we lost. And Andy Dawson was the manager of them. So it was nice.
That was
nice. Did you hear about it?
For you?
Yeah. But what happens now is that they tend to get split up, the younger goalies and the senior goalies. So I take care of the younger ones, and Gary Walsh, who was at Hull, take care of the senior goalies. Well, when I was at Aston Villa, it wasn't like that. Everybody used to train together. So the short answer is yes. I used to train with them every day, and it was brilliant. Really, it's the best learning anyone can have, and which is what we say now. Which is why we try to integrate as many of the younger goalies, as we can with the first team group, because the best way for anyone to learn and to see what is actually possible is to train with the best goalkeeper at the club as regularly as they can, or lots of good quality ones. So from that point of view, yeah, I was very, very lucky, to be honest.
It must have been just like a bit of a dream for you. So you've got all these like amazing goalkeepers around you. You get to train with them every day. Was there anything specific that each of those goalies taught you that you then took into your game later on? Like, was there anything that you really thought, I took that from that keeper? Because when you're in any kind of position where you're in a job and you're laying off other people, you take different things from different people, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think I changed. Like, for example, when Mark Bosnich wasn't there very long, I must have trained with him for probably 3 months, and he left. But he was so different to any other goalie I've ever met and ever seen. At Aston Villa, right? Aston Villa have had the tunnel done out in the new stand that they built in recent years. Before that, they used to have a tiny corridor, like a normal corridor that you would have in any workplace. Must be 4-5 feet wide, 8 foot high. Mark Bosnich used to do his entire warm up in that corridor. It was mental. I remember watching him as a first time I seen it. I was about 14. And I was watching it thinking, what are you doing? So you've got the goalie coach with his boots on a carpet, kicking volleys at him. I couldn't get my head around it. Then he would go out onto the pitch and practice things. So again, to speed things up, he did everything completely different to, I imagine, any other goalie that's ever walked the planet. He did his own warm-ups when warm-ups weren't really a thing. He was just he was professional. He was infinitely professional. But then he had this little naughty side to him as well, which I always found quite interesting. One day I remember, again, I was injured. This was when I was young again, must have been 15. Walked into the treatment room at Aston Villa and he was sat on the treatment bed smoking a cigar. And I was looking around going, what's going on here? I didn't take that into my game, but it was an interesting story about him. He was, but that's what he was, a massive extrovert. Yeah. Massive. And another story, I remember he made an unbelievable save against Coventry. And this is another time in the treatment room. I was injured quite a bit when I was younger. I walked in and he was on the treatment table. And obviously, I was coming towards the time where I was going to start as a first-year scholar, so I would have been 16. Yeah. I walked in and I was always quite chubby kid. So he walked in. But the ironic thing was he was very chubby. Like,
you fat bastard at him, didn't they?
Yeah. So he's lying on the treatment bed again. Saying, "Oh, did you see my save at the week?" I'm not going to do his accent. Did you see my save at the weekend, son? I was like, "Yeah, it was unbelievable." He said, "I wouldn't make that save if I was overweight. You need to work on your physique." And I'm looking at him thinking,
"Cheeky bastard,
you mad here?" But no, he was a massive character, massive character.
Yeah.
Then he left, and I suppose obviously Peter Schmeichel was just an incredible presence. Really, really strong, again, character, personality, almost another manager, like a born leader kind of thing.
He even had that role at Villa, did he?
I remember being involved in one of the games as John Gregory was the manager, and John Gregory walked in, starting ready to shout at people, and Peter Schmeichel almost threw him out the way so he could start shouting at people. And it's just like I say, I would never cross my mind, but that's just how passionate he was about the game. So it's just different, like I say, very, very different. Technically, he was not how we coach goalkeepers in this country. And I remember Eric Steele, who was the goalkeeping coach at the time. I cringed a little bit inside, but this is what Eric Steele is obviously one of the best goalie coaches the country's had. He delivers on the A licenses now. I remember at the age of 37, whatever he was, in trying to coach Peter Schmeichel, and I'm sat there going, "What are you doing? Just leave him to it." Yeah. He's like, he was very different. Like I say, it worked for him because he had like
he was a handball player, wasn't he? I think
that's exactly it. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that he did, you wouldn't coach, but he learned it through handball. And Casper's very much the same. And actually, strangely, Casper used to come in all the time when he was. So that was very interesting for me when we played against Cardiff and stuff. Obviously, having seen Casper train quite a lot, it was kind of almost like, "All right, mate, how are you? How's things?" Yeah, it was good. He was, and you could tell very early on as well what a good goalie he was going to be. He was like 14, I think, roughly, when I was 16 or something along those lines. And he was training. His dad used to bring him in, and he went all of a sudden from this little kind of short, skinny goalie. All of a sudden, he was he filled out nicely. So that was just one of them things in football that happened that you don't realise is going to happen until you're in a tunnel ready to play a game opposite someone going, all right, mate, I remember you.
Yeah. Obviously, when you were at Villa, you were the young goalie and you were quite far down the pecking order, which you would be if you were a young up-and-coming goalie, and you've got Peter Schmeichel and David James in front of you. You had a few loan spells, didn't you? You had like Stoke, Bristol, I think Bradford, Macclesfield as well before Stockport, before you came to us.
Yeah.
Do you think the loan system worked for you to kind of get yourself ready to play league football?
Especially in the job I understand now. Everybody goes mad about Jordan Pickford's journey from.
Yeah.
By the time he played for Sunderland's first team, he'd already played, I think, almost 200 league games. I think it's invaluable, especially for goalkeepers, that by the time, especially to be ready for a Premier League, kind of a big Premier League club, unless you're incredibly talented like David De Gea, who still played for another very good team, but like that won't happen anymore. You won't see things like that happen. It's a very, very difficult sell to any manager in the Premier League who will get sacked if a goalkeeper has a sticky period for 3 months, kind of thing. So it's a hard sell. But yeah, for me, massively. For starters, as a young goalie, as we all do, I thought I was miles better than I was, and I went out on loan, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually really hard. You go from playing in the youth team where you can kind of do what you want, you play out from the back, and if they score, it doesn't really matter. And then I progressed it to I remember us playing Swansea away when I was at Hull.
Yeah.
And I remember Ian Ashby and Mark Joseph kind of screaming at each other, rolling around the dressing room and all that, thinking, what's going on here? But it's just all part of it, because the league, adults football is more geared towards winning, and people depending on win bonuses and wages and getting another contract to kind of live off, really. So from that point of view, being able to kind of float in those environments are very good.
Is it not like that in 23s? Because you... Obviously, you're with West Brom under 23s now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Is the whole kind of is it not win at all costs? Is it more about the development?
No, I would describe our under 23 philosophy as developing players.
Right.
We obviously want to try and teach them to win.
Yes.
And I think, as I understand it, I didn't work in it last year, but as I understand it this year, we've been a lot more geared towards trying to win.
Right.
But I think that, firstly, the Akar Academy philosophy has always been to try and kind of produce talented footballers that play in a certain style of football.
Yeah.
And then winning, if you can win as well, then that's great. But coupled to that as well, we've had a change of academy manager during the course of the year as well. So things have changed a little bit from that point of view. But I would say that if an under 23 player loses a game, ultimately they'll be disappointed. But if a first team player loses a game, he might not get in the team next week. He might not get. It's all by the nature of it is all very, very infinitely more serious. I would say not to be treated disrespectfully by the players in the under 23 football.
No,
but it's first team football is first team football for a reason, because it's people who can play under pressure for their livelihoods, kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a much bigger picture to the 23s games, I suppose, isn't there?
Yeah.
Go
on. Sorry, Rich, you go with your question.
Yeah. So you've had these loan spells before you joined City. You've been out at Macclesfield and played 15 games, and then you've had a couple of games at Stockport. And I think I remember reading at the time that Stockport were in for you as well, but then you learned that City came in. Yeah. And you preferred the move to City, which, looking at it with the benefit of hindsight, it seems like such an obvious move to make. Everything seems set up for the way it went. But what was it about City that swayed you towards the move?
Well, actually, at the time, later on in later years, we got Mark Prudhoe as goalkeeping coach.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was taking me at Macclesfield from time to time, and went at Stockport. He was like a part-time freelance goalkeeping coach for some stage of his career. And I spoke to him about it a little bit, but ultimately, when I went on loan to Stockport, I'd made up my mind that I was going to leave Aston Villa. That was it. I was done. So they were done with me. That's not me sounding I don't mean to sound childishly. I was like, I was not in a position where I was good enough to play for them. Exactly like what I said before. I needed to go and play man's football, learn my job to try and progress up the league. It's what every young player's got to do. And I wanted to sign for Stockport at the time. So I was offered a loan because they weren't sure about me more than anything else. So Sammy McElroy was the manager. I said, look, I want to sign. And he was like, well, if I remember, I was in my mate's house. It's going to do an accent again then. I'm not going to do it. And we just want to have a look at you for a month, blah, and kind of thing. I was like, well, I wasn't delighted about it because you want certainty, don't you? So I was like, okay. And then after about, like I say, a couple of games, my phone rang, and this was awkward. I was like, okay. So then I had to tell them at Stockport, well, look, I want to sign for them. And I had Sammy McElroy ringing me, calling me all the names under the sun. Also, I had Macclesfield as well, who were prepared to stump up the money as well, which was quite a big thing for them, really. But so that was the way it went. It was kind of, I made my decision. I obviously told Sammy McElroy. I told John Askey, it was at the time, he was Macclesfield manager. And then obviously I came up to Hull.
That's and like
it's
Rich
mental,
says,
isn't it?
Like Rich says,
it's mental.
It's so like, you hindsight now, but like I can't imagine City without you in goal for that period. I don't know if Rich is the same.
No, I know, but it would have been someone else. That's football, isn't it? It would have been someone else. It's mental, and I'm so glad it was me.
Yeah,
I am so glad it was me. But it's just, I did a piece with Phil Buckingham the other week, and he was saying the same, almost like a sliding doors moment. And for me, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly it was.
Because you look at the journeys of those two clubs, in the time since, and it couldn't be more of a contrast, really, could it? So what could have been for you, a career potential struggle against one that just went up and up and up from that point onwards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? Like the fragility of that. At the time, you wouldn't know how good City would be, how good Stockport would be, and you've chosen, and it's the right one. So it's just like fragility of their moments is mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, like I say, I'd been to Stockport and I had experienced the training ground, which was no better really than what Hull's was when I signed for Hull. It's improved since then, but no. So, but the stadium was kind of run down and at Stockport.
Yeah.
And obviously, at the time, Hull was on the up massively. It was all the buzz, the stadium, the infrastructure, the kind of the plan that Adam Pearson had, and obviously Peter Taylor as well was a big draw, high-profile manager, and to be fair, he's someone who helped me a lot, really, in different ways, really. But so yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody presented with the choice that I had would have made the same choice based on everything else being the same. It was really exciting for me. After you asked before about what you want when you were, I was exactly the opportunity, what you wanted times 500. I did, like you said, the stuff that happened afterwards, I didn't expect.
Yeah.
The first season when I signed, I was kind of, oh my God, these could get promoted. And I remember away at Yeovil thinking, bloody hell, is that what that feels like? And then it was just jumping a bit ahead here, I'm sure, but it was a surreal couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Peter Taylor being a draw. When you signed, and you're almost, I think, did you start the next game, I think?
I wasn't. I was on the bench for the first game.
Were you? Right.
Yeah, Scunthorpe.
Okay. Yeah. And then you made your debut in the away game at Mansfield, didn't you?
Yeah. I was at home. Sorry, yeah.
Right. Okay. But you very quickly established yourself as the number one. What coming in as in relative terms in football, very junior goalkeeper, and you got the likes of Alan Fettis and Paul Musselwhite within the squad. What was that like to find yourself as the number one ahead of those two established pros?
Honestly, I think you hear people talk about the naivety of youth. I would have found that a lot harder, I think, if I was 27 when I did it. I didn't get all that because I'd never been in that situation. I didn't understand that they would be pissed off that I was there. I didn't. I just turned up and it was all so exciting. I just used to go into work. There was we had a load of young lads, which was great. I loved. Like me and Ben Burgess used to live in flats opposite each other, and we used to as things were then. It was a lot easier to go out as groups. We used to kind of do stuff like that together, which doesn't happen so much anymore.
There's no social media then, really, was there?
Well, there wasn't, no. So there was,
better times.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it was just so, like I say, going back to like what I said about, I was just so excited to be playing football in an adult league.
Yeah.
I didn't, and again, the naivety of youth, I didn't think that maybe Alan Fettis would be annoyed and Paul Musselwhite would be annoyed. And to be fair, they were both top class with me, really, all the time. Muzzy especially was really, really supportive all the time. And I've seen him since, and I've kind of said, obviously, thank you to him for it and stuff. It was, he did make it as easy as it could have been for me,
I think they'd take out their anger on like Peter Taylor, wouldn't they? Be at his door, like having a go at him. They wouldn't have a go at you, would they, if they were top pros and bringing the young keeper on? I'd imagine that's how it kind of would be, is it?
Well, that's how I would do it, yeah. But, but that, I mean, it doesn't always work like that, does it? Where people do things the way they should. So, they were good as gold, to be fair.
Because when you've established yourself then in that second half of the season, you signed in December, didn't you? It was December 2003. Yeah. You said before about you had that moment in Yeovil going, bloody hell, this is what getting promoted could feel like. When did you start to believe that was going to be a potential kind of thing that could happen in that season? Because obviously we went up, I think we were second? Did we go up as second place that year?
Second, yeah. But I mean, almost as soon as you were in the side, Bo went 7 games on the spin.
Yeah.
I remember another stupid conversation I had with one of the old goalkeeper coaches, Paul Barron, I had at Aston Villa. He's like, all right, mate, how's it going? I was like, yes, sound. I'm a bit bored though. Like we've won about 7 games on the spin. I would love to have more saves to make. And he went quiet on the phone. It went quiet on the phone for a bit, and he goes, "Sorry, what?" I was like, "Yeah, never mind, mate. Yeah, it's good. I love it." Kind of thing. It's funny. It's just one of them conversations that you just can't forget, kind of thing.
Because that's one of the things that we've said when we've been. I mean, me and Luke had a chat before we started speaking to you, and sort of doing the research to talk to you. It's like a lot of the stuff that. The highlights and the games that stick out for you in your City career come a little bit later on because, the nature of the side you were playing in at this time, because we were very successful. It's like you weren't getting tested an awful lot.
No, I think that was another one of the draws. Looking at the squad, the squad was a very strong squad.
Especially for that division at the time.
Yeah, they recruited well, in my opinion. Well, it's shown to be true that they recruited well. It's more difficult to do now, I think.
I couldn't see doing it now.
Even with our promotion now from the Championship, it'd be very unlikely that a team with the comparable budget to what we had compared to the top teams would get away with doing that now. It's be incredible, really, to see things like that happening again.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the money that we spent to get out of the division and relative to what City had spent previously, it seemed like big money.
Yeah.
But now it's... it doesn't compare.
That wouldn't probably get out of
get one player,
the league below. No.
So some of the wages, some of them will be on even like down in League One and then Championship.
Yeah.
It's that you would buy a whole squad with that at this time, wouldn't you?
Yeah. But that might change again now with what's going on, I think.
Possibly.
Yeah, could do, yeah. So what that season where you're playing your first bit of really regular first team football and you're establishing yourself at a club that's yours, do you have any kind of outstanding memories, Yeovil aside, because we'll come to that, but is there anything that sticks out?
I remember walking out for my first game, the game at Scunthorpe, the day I wasn't playing. I remember walking out behind Ben Burgess. I didn't know Ben Burgess from Adam Ben. And he looked at me and he showed me his boots. He said, "Look, these have got goals in them, son. I scored an overhead kick in them last week," or something like that. I'll never forget that. I was laughing my head off. And obviously me and Ben have been really good friends, still speak now, still kind of see each other when we can now. So it's one of them where it's obviously Hull was good for me football wise, but I say this a lot. It did everything for me, really. I had my kids in Hull, met a lot of friends in Hull. So it's just kind of it was obviously one of the most positive times in my life, really. So
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like you say, yourself and Ben lived across from each other, and we know that there were other lads. Like we spoke to Stuart Green last week, and he said he was living with Damien Delaney for a time in Beverley, and it sounds like the closeness of those squads was a key thing in what you went on to do. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, I think the kind of ambition of young people, or people of a good age, player of a good age. But good characters as well. I think obviously Ian Ashby, Mark Joseph, those kind of characters, Nick Barmby, in the beginning of things were very, very, very good signings. Leaders really. Obviously surrounded by all the youngsters, so it was important not just to have young players. And yeah, it was a good blend, and a blend of people who wanted to do well, which again is not an exact science. It's kind of you can plan and plan and plan, and things don't always go the way you want them to. But thankfully for us, in the early stages in particular, they did. So we're lucky from that point of view, really.
Yeah, because after that season, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that Yeovil game, Rich. You mentioned it before.
But... Yes, yeah. I just like to know, I think you were 21 at the time that Yeovil game came around. Did you feel the weight of the kind of pressure of City's history on you at that point? 19 years without a promotion, and it was kind of, I think we were sort of limping or stuttering towards it at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what I remember more than anything else. I remember thinking kind of a couple of times, we're going to do it today, and then we didn't.
Yeah.
And you don't lose the excitement, but I'd gone into games before that thinking, right, we're going to do it today. And I remember thinking after the Yeovil game, that's the first time really where I was thinking, this might be a bit difficult today. And just sometimes, like a lot of the memories we have, sat on the bus afterwards, driving back, some of the good times really that obviously the fans don't get to see, but it's nice as a player when you've kind of done what needs to be done and you kind of relaxed. And because, obviously the pressure ramps up the higher up the leagues you go, but that was obviously massive pressure for us. For me, it was the most pressure I'd ever felt as a football player. So it was good to get it done.
Yeah.
And then obviously the trip back and kind of enjoy it. Really, it was a good game.
You couldn't have a longer trip back, could you, from Yeovil? Or maybe Plymouth.
No.
We flew back.
Yeah,
it was fantastic.
Did you, Rich?
Well, we didn't actually. No, it felt like we did.
Okay. I was going to say, you actually catch a plane from there. Like,
no, God, no. No, we weren't that flush.
I was going to say, bloody hell. But obviously we go up, and do you have any memories of that open top bus parade, Boaz, from when you?
Yeah, I remember Ryan Francis' wife got hit in the face with a water balloon. That was funny. They weren't married then. I think they just started going out, and it was like the first time she'd met everyone. And the girls are like turn up looking lovely, and then all of a sudden this water bomb hits her in the face, and she's eyebrows hanging all down and all that. It's makeup everywhere. I remember that.
Somebody chucked it from the roof.
Yeah, I think so. Someone from the road. I think that was a good memory.
Oh God, that's great. So obviously, we just talked about Francis' missus at the time getting absolutely pummeled in the face by a water balloon. I'm sure that was great stuff. Not for her, obviously. How did Francie react to that?
Just laughed his head off. Everyone, it was horrible, really. It must have been not nice for her, but everybody, it's just one of them where you just thought, and then you just laughed. It's kind of all, yeah.
Because obviously, the summer after that, we made one of the biggest signings I think we've made, in the last 20 years, which is when we signed Nick Barmby.
Yeah.
What kind of buzz did that give, the squad and everything, knowing that a big signing like that had chosen to join? We were in League One then, weren't we?
Yeah,
he was dropping down the divisions.
Yeah, that was what he wanted to do. He did it because not everybody gets to make decisions like that. Obviously,
no. People
kind of join their careers cynically. A lot of people have got to make money to kind of have a life down. But Nick was in a position where he could do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And to be fair, even before then, we'd heard stories because he's from the area. He would come and watch our games and stuff. And like before the games, everyone would go, "Oh, Nick's watching again tonight," and he was like, "Oh wow," kind of thing. And then I remember running up the hills in Brantingham behind him in pre-season, talking to him, and that was another surreal thing. It was kind of similar to being at Aston Villa with the Premier League players there, where you're looking at them a little bit kind of starstruck. It was similar for everyone, really, but he wasn't like that.
Yeah.
He deliberately went out of his way, I think, to buy a car that was more modest than maybe some of the ones he'd had before, so he didn't look like he was
flash and big time.
Which he wasn't anyway.
No. I never got that impression of Barnes, to be honest.
No. So he was good, and he was just good with everyone, really. He was a different kind of leader, really. He wasn't a screamer or a shouter. Some of the other lads were. Some of the other lads were, like Andy Dawson was not a screamer or a shouter until he got really angry, and then he would. But he was more of a leader by just doing his job. And Nick was kind of somewhere in the middle, where he would obviously be the top player that he was, but then he would, especially another great kind of signing for us younger boys, someone who'd been there, seen it, done it at the highest level, kind of to help us all, was his opinion always carried a lot of weight with all the younger lads because of exactly that, because of the way he conducted himself and the career that he'd had.
He wouldn't have been as much of a success at City, I think, if he had come in with a big-time attitude either, would he? Because, like you said before, your squad was so tight-knit that had he come in and been, separate to that, it probably wouldn't have worked for him, would it?
No, I agree with that. We never really. I don't remember ever looking at anyone at Hull thinking, "Well, you're a big time Charlie. I don't really like you." Do you know what I mean? I think they did that quite well. But
not at that time. Certainly.
Not at that time, no, especially. I think, but going back to what you said originally, I think that's a good point, well made. Really, there was that we had a lot of kind of humble people that wanted to improve, and I think Nick bought into that, and we all massively bought into him. So it was good for both parties, really.
And also that summer, both Matt Duke came in, which proved to be, between you and him, quite a fruitful goalkeeping partnership for the club. You're still establishing yourself, though. All right, you played the back end of for the second half of the last season. You were the number one.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when Matt Duke came in? Did you think you're going to have to prove yourself all over again, or did you see him as the number two? What was going on there?
It's similar to before, really. I never really thought that much about it. I just thought, well, kind of excitement, really. This would have been my first pre-season with my new club, so I was more kind of looking forward to that. I think we did the rounds of all the Essex clubs. I'm not sure why we did the rounds of all the Essex clubs.
Because Peter Taylor lived down there.
I think our manager might have lived down there.
Yeah. But, it's like, I don't want to travel from my house, get them done.
Yeah, but to be fair, can't blame him really.
No.
But I mean, it was exactly that. I mean, that's football, isn't it? I didn't know what was going to happen. The club, I'm sure the club didn't sign him just to. Do you know what I mean?
No, because
they would have had real aspirations for him coming and doing really well. Which I've got to be honest, in times you fast forward to the Premier League, the year we stayed in the Premier League, I think probably the most important result we got the whole year was away at Fulham, and he played in that. So
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's kind of different forms of success, really. I mean, I've had experiences of that in the later stages of my career at West Brom, where kind of you have to make your appearances count, and he definitely did that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because that's one thing that I wanted to touch on with you, really, is what's the dynamic like between, when you're a number one and you've got to kind of, coexist in the squad with your number two, and then later on in that career that shifted for you, didn't it? So what's that like, kind of, having to tread that line between the two goalkeepers or three goalkeepers in the squad? What's the dynamic like?
I was honestly, some of the times later on, I remember sitting talking to Dukey about exactly this before one of the seasons. I think it was the year we got promoted, and actually he went on to play some of the early games in the season. And I remember speaking to him about, all right, mate, blah, blah. And he was a bit down. I was like, oh, why? He goes, it just does my head in not playing. I was like, yeah. I said, but you never know, mate. You never know what can happen, kind of thing. Because we always used to room together, and actually we're really good friends. So part of me, when I didn't play, especially in the Premier League, I was actually really happy for him to get to do it.
Yeah.
As well as I was disappointed that I weren't playing. It was kind of, you have to... I think that's in my nature, really. I've never really been that selfish towards stuff. So I would be different to some of the other goalkeepers who you would ask that question to. My kind of feeling was, I'll try my best. The manager takes me out of the team. I'm not happy about it. I had a bit of a tendency to sulk about it, but not to Matt in particular, or not to anyone else. So that was more like what you said about speaking to the manager about stuff. I would more speak to the manager about stuff. I was always kind of very, very supportive of Matt or whoever else it is.
Yeah.
On a match day, really. So yeah, no, I was like I said, I don't think you'll have seen anybody else give him a bigger hug after that Fulham game than me.
Yeah, he deserved it that night as well. Did you have anything you wanted to touch on there, Luke, or I don't just want to take it over?
No. With that season, because obviously you just you'd moved over, we'd got promoted in your first half season, and then that season we also got promoted, didn't we? Yeah. Because it was the back-to-back promotions under Taylor. Did at that point, did you just kind of think, well, how much better could it get? Would you have to pinch yourself at some points? Because obviously that doesn't often happen, does it? You don't join a club and then get promoted twice in a year.
No, I mean, if you'd have offered me 2 seasons in League Two when I signed for Hull, I'd have been happy with it.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of where I'd come from and what I was doing.
Yeah.
And like you say, it fell into a little bit of the surreal kind of, oh, we've just got promoted again kind of thing. The first season in the Championship was a bit sobering.
I bet it was, yeah.
Again, that was kind of borderline starstruck, playing against the really, really good Reading team. Some of the other kind of, you start coming towards more of the players who've played in the Premier League, who are kind of finishing off their careers or have moved somewhere closer to home kind of thing. So you come across more players like that, and it gets to the stage where being a together team is still very powerful, but you need a little bit more to be a success in that league. But still, that was really exciting, driving away from some of the grounds.
Yeah, because I mean, they were proper grounds, like stadiums, big clubs, once you moved up there. So what's that like as a keeper, moving up through the divisions? The strikers always say that they get fewer chances to score and they have to be sharper in the box. How's a goalkeeper's game affected as you move up the leagues?
I didn't really feel a massive difference between the League Two and League One. I think there was a sizable difference between League One and the Championship as it was then.
Yeah.
It just, everything was a lot more kind of done slightly quicker with a lot more quality, as you'd expect.
I suppose more intense, I suppose, wouldn't it? It'd be more intense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Some of the atmospheres in a lot of the stadiums were more intense. I think the other thing that was good for us as well is as excited as all the players were, I think the fans were quite excited at the time.
Yes, yeah.
So it was always reflected in the atmosphere at our stadiums. I can't imagine people enjoyed playing at our stadiums for the 3 or 4 years when we were going through the leagues. I think, like I say, the fans were kind of, I can imagine a lot of the fans were just thinking, what's going on? I don't get this, but let's have a great time while it's happening, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I can imagine.
It did become, KC was a fortress in the first few years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the,
it's
kind of, I mean, we don't need to talk about what City's like at the minute, because I think the less said, the better current situation.
No, but that will be a big reason why, because of what the people of your generation saw in comparison to what they can see now. It's not, like I say, doesn't matter who you are, you kind of, it's an entertainment industry, and it's please excite me or give me something I've never seen before. And after you've seen something once, you can't unsee it and then see it again. So the fans are never going to be as excited by seeing. It's a hard task, really, without sounding. I don't mean it me. I mean the whole scenario is. Yeah. Once you've seen it once, you can't see it for the first time again. So it's difficult for the fans to be as excited and spend all their money on going to watch every week, which is, especially with the way things are now, it's not easy, is it?
I think and then when Rich and I were growing up, because we'd gone when there was 4,000 or 5,000 at Boothry, didn't we? And then it started to get a little bit more interest. So I don't know. It's a tough one. But I also wanted to ask about Peter Taylor, Because you've played under quite a few managers for City, haven't you?
Yeah.
And obviously Pete Taylor brought you there. What was he like to work for? And then how did you feel when he went to Palace and you had a new manager for the first time at City?
I will forever be thankful for him. He was obviously the manager that signed me.
Yeah.
He wasn't always the gentlest with me as a young goalie, to be honest. He was kind of me, Damien, and Dorse used to get, and I can't swear on here, I'm sure.
You can. You're allowed to.
You, and fucking you. Most half times is what we used to get. So, but no, he was really, really good. Him and Colin Murphy, Steve Butler, who was there. He didn't stay the whole of the time. Obviously, Mark Prideaux, Rod Arnold as well, who was the goalie coach when I first went there. So there was a lot of good people there. It was just, like I say, it was. I remember when he signed, what he said to me is that I want to do something with this football club where people, when I leave, people will go, look at what I've done here.
Well, he certainly did.
And actually, when he left, he tried to take me with him to Crystal Palace.
Did he?
I kind of said to him, look, I don't want to leave here. It's not anything personal. I don't want to leave at this time.
Yeah.
But I said, look, well done. And I remembered the phone conversation when you signed me. I said, look, to be fair, nobody will ever be able to argue with what you've achieved here. Well done, and thanks for everything. Pretty much was the way it worked.
That's interesting. And he tried to sign you after he said he was real hard on you and fucking you.
He was. I at the time, you kind of he just wanted us to improve.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I understood that. Like I say, I didn't always enjoy it, but he definitely helped me.
I mean, it must have worked for you to some extent as well, because in that first championship season, you were player of the year, and I'd forgotten about this, but I remember seeing it at the time. But like 442 do the top 50 football league players, and you were the highest ranked goalkeeper.
I read that when I was researching for tonight, and I'd forgotten completely about that. It's no disrespect to Boaz at all, mate, but
no. But I just think that it was, again, a culmination of, as a goalkeeper with a team in a new league, unless you hit the ground running like we had done in previous years, we were always going to get to a stage where we might have to dig in for a bit. And I think it was that season really where kind of we were under the cosh a bit more. Yeah. And by the nature of that, I think I had a few saves to make really. So
that's
you had.
So I was happy. It was good. It was a good season for me. I enjoyed it.
Do you have any particular standouts from that year? Because I mean, the Leeds game's the one that everyone talks about from that season, because it's the weight of history behind it and what have you. Is there anything that stands out for you from that year?
It's just the games against Reading. I remember playing against Marcus Hanneman and things like that, thinking again, what a good side they were.
They were outstanding at their place that year.
They were. Yeah, I remember that game in particular. Kind of not so much fondly, but just as a really kind of a tough game and a kind of real eye opener to how much better really you've got to be if you want to get past that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so, it does. I remember we couldn't, we scored one goal, but other than that, we couldn't really lay a glove on them.
No. And it's just, it's again, confidence, experience, They were the team to beat, weren't they? I think they had 100 points, didn't they? Almost. Is that right?
Something like that.
Ridiculous amount, didn't they?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's in that season there's a change of manager after a while, isn't there? Phil Parkinson comes in, and then Brownie takes over as caretaker. What was that whole situation like? 'Cause it was an odd one, that wasn't it?
Yeah, it was must have really, like, the game obviously before he got sacked was away at Colchester.
Yeah. Rich went.
It was tough really because that was his old club as well. It's mad how football throws things like that up, but it was a disappointing start to the season. Like all managers do when they take over, he tried to change quite a lot of stuff. Some of it was good, some of it was different. And at the end of the day, once you don't start the season well in a tough league, you're under the cosh. And I think obviously the chairman at the time decided to kind of take him out the firing line, really.
Yeah.
And then obviously Phil Brown did unbelievable job, really. A lot of the stuff that season going on, obviously, I think it was Dean Windass, wasn't it, that scored the goal at Cardiff.
It was, yeah.
Which was as good a goal as he'll probably ever score, apart from the other one at Wembley. That was an enjoyable season after a kind of frustrating start. We didn't really set the world alight at any stage, but we kind of stuck in there and kind of ground it out, really. And
it could have gone very differently, looking at the start of that season, because I remember went to West Brom on the first day of the season, and at 1-0 down, getting on towards the game, I can remember John Welsh being hauled down for what was a definite penalty, and then they go down the other end. John Hartson scores, I think, to make it 2-0. And then there was the Barnsley game, 2-0 up at half time, and we end up losing it. And the Derby game, I think they got awarded a ridiculous penalty as well for the handball against us that never was.
Lots of bad decisions against us that season.
Well, it almost felt like ill-fated, it was never meant to be.
Yeah. Stuff like that does happen when you're the underdog, doesn't it? I think, like you say, sometimes the referees, I don't think they mean to do it, but sometimes it does happen.
Yeah.
But no, I think, like I say, after the start we did have, I think obviously we give ourselves another chance the year after. And like I say, shocked Dino scored the goal when it really mattered. Yeah. To be fair to him, he was always good for that.
Yeah, he was. And him coming in that year was vital to us. Staying up, the 7 goals he scored.
Yeah.
And then the next year, obviously, it finished the way it finished. Who could forget that? You make 46 starts that season, and it's kind of like a slow build towards promotion.
Yeah.
During the course of that season, you get called up for Wales. Could you speak a little bit about your international career? What was it like to represent Wales, and also why did you choose Wales? Because for a lot of your career, I can remember the fans chanting Myhill for England. Or
didn't you make some appearances for England under 20?
Yeah. A handful. Yeah. I just decided. My mum's Welsh, obviously, and I was brought up in Wales. Yeah. And I wanted kind of some things you do to make your family proud, don't you? And that was one of them things. I kind of wanted to do it really for my family.
Was it ever a question for you that you would represent Wales?
To be honest with you, I'd not really thought about it until kind of I spoke to there's one of the old West Brom captains lives a couple of villages away from my mum and dad, and he worked for Wales, and he was like, well, why don't you come and train? And I was like, yeah, all right then. And it just went from there. It was kind of one of those things where it just, you get a decision to make, and I made it. And it wasn't, I'm not really a massive overthinker of things. I think I always remember thinking, well, I think my family would be really proud. I really want to do it. Some good footballing experience. I spoke to some of the older boys at Hull, spoke at length to Nick Barmby about it one day, I remember, and he said, yeah, you'd be an idiot not to get involved in that. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And so that was that. It was good.
So there'd never been another opportunity for you to get involved with other national sides? Because, I mean, you could have played for the States as well, couldn't you?
Yeah.
You born there, weren't you? So you did,
that never kind of was ever a thing. It never happened. I'm not sure. I always used to watch Mark Schwarzer playing in the Premier League. Yeah. I don't know how he did it for so long. Coming back on a Thursday from Australia, it must have just been mental that for him. But that would have been really, really hard work to come back and play on a Saturday after having played midweek for America somewhere. But like I say, I didn't ever think that through. It just that never was a. That never I
do
was
remember the Myhill for England. Was it the Stoke game where you saved 2 pens?
Yeah,
I'm sure City fans were shouting Myhill for England then, weren't they?
Maybe. I've got a favourite. My brother-in-law calls me Pudding. We played away against Stoke one day, and it was one of those. I think Rory Delap had launched the throw-in. I'd gone to punch it, missed it, and it had gone in, or something like that. And my brother-in-law was sat in the stands with his dad and my wife. And one of the fans goes, "Myhill, you big pudding," and that's my favourite Stoke moment. And so forever since, my brother-in-law has called me Pudding.
I remember
because it was at Stoke as well that you.
It was another game against Stoke. Didn't you put it out for a corner instead of the throw? Because
that was for the 3 or 4 years when we played against them, when Rory Delap was playing for them. It was always a big thing. But the week before, Phil Brown had done a lot of stuff on it. Really, we'd never really practiced long throw-ins before a game. We talked about them, but physically, he had people launching it into the box, overarm throwing it, and everything. And actually, what they did was they looked into the stats where they scored their goals from, and they scored a lot more goals from the throw-ins than they did from the corners. So you thought,
best chance, right? I'll boot it out because at least we'll have that.
Well, that was what he said. Actually, Phil Brown said that.
Right.
But I can't really take credit for thinking about doing it. I actually had what was a very average first touch, then went to shell it out of play, and then thought, oh no, throw in. Then I had another touch, and actually I just did it without thinking about it, but we probably subconsciously, because we've been talking about it all week. Yeah. Kind of. That's
I remember seeing the clip. That's all. Just like when I was doing research earlier, and like I forgot. Was it might have been Ricardo Fuller was trying to get the ball off you?
Yeah,
and it was just putting it out for a corner. Because at least we won't get.
That was pretty much how it went. Yeah. Which is not ideal because our fans are right behind that goal as well, and you can imagine that wasn't very well received.
I could remember it. Yeah, I was at that game, and I could remember like the howl of like indignation. What the hell is he doing? But I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense, doesn't it?
I'm sure that was when Dino was booked for warming up in front of Delap as well.
What actually would have made more sense would have been to have a decent touch on my right foot and either passed it out or shelled it down the pitch. To be honest, but
you can't always plan those things, can you?
To be fair, we didn't talk about doing that in training the week before. So.
Yeah, they should have talked about that all week in training. You might have come off with it.
Was that always a thing? Sorry, boys. Was that a thing that you always did? Did they do stats at that time? Because I know we're talking 13 years ago, and lots of people.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean the
stats and all of that, and they look at the most likely and all of that. But obviously, that was a bit of a different scenario because Rory Delap was known for one thing, and that was throwing it fucking long into the box, and they scored from it. But did they often prep you with all the stats and everything else, and what's most likely and what's not?
Not as much as what it is now, but the coaching staff would always say, "Look, this might happen, that might happen," but they would have not been doing their job. Let's have it right. If we'd have been playing against Stoke, and they'd have not spent a lot of time talking about that, because that was pretty much. Having worked for Tony Pulis since, I know exactly what he thinks is what he wants. I know exactly what he wants and what he doesn't want. And what he doesn't want is kind of players giving the ball away when he would much rather see a winger dribble it up the line, someone tackle it out for a throw-in or a corner so he can put it in the box, rather than give it away trying to do something clever coming inside.
To counter-attacks, does he? Because
no,
you can tell that from the way that he manages all the time. But that promote. Do you have any like memories of the day? Because when we've talked to a few people, I'm talking about the playoff final here, but we've talked to a couple of players, and we've usually mentioned when Wayne Brown just jumped on your back, towards the end.
Yeah.
What is there any key standout memories just before we start another piece? I'll send you another recording link in a minute, but is there anything specific?
First, to start the day, I remember getting on the bus on the bus to Wembley, and Dean Windass said to Paul Duffin, who was the chairman, "If I score the winner, can I have your points?" I remember that. Whether he got it or not, I can't remember, but he definitely said that.
I'll have to copy Dean into the episode when we post it on Twitter and see if he actually got it. I doubt he would have done, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. So we started to talk about the playoff final, and then think we're going to do the Premier League years because we don't want to take up too much of your time. So probably another sort of 20-25 minutes, and cover the latter part of your City career, if that's all right.
Yeah, it's fine. Like I say, I'm staying awake till 1:30 to do a run around the West Midlands anyway.
We won't
so
take
not
up
a problem.
All your time, but it's great of you to spend so much time talking to us. So thanks again. Did you want to? Sorry, I asked the question last time, Rich. Did you want to ask anything about the day itself of the playoff final?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken with Craig Fagan and Caleb Folan about the playoff final and the build up around it, and it just seemed to me like from the outside perspective that this team was so well prepared going into it. Did you think that played any part in the success of the day? Like your tickets were taken care of by somebody else, and you went into Wembley Stadium the day before the game to have a look around rather than on the morning after. Did you, or the morning of the game? Did you feel like that played a part in the success of the day?
Yes, probably. I can't say whether it made a massive difference, but it was definitely very smooth. The hotel we stayed in was lovely as well. It was all very well done. Before the playoff games as well, the Watford games, they took us to a health spa thing, and we'd had a nice chill out. And he was always very good at that, Phil Brown, kind of, because he'd been at a high level at the Premier League. He'd been around.
Yeah, Sam's a big fan of doing that.
He understood that
away and all of that, treating them well.
Yeah, he understood that side of it, and we'd never really done things like that before he came. So it was very well kind of prepared. I think it was everybody, because we had such momentum. I think everybody was just on a bit of a high anyway. Again, going back to the same kind of answer, really, it was there in the future, the playoff. And then it was the day, and it was like, well, it's just the playoff final, and it's just another game kind of thing. It was so, again, the naivety of youth, really, because I've said this before. Brian Hughes said something to me afterwards, and it makes sense now. He was another kind of older, more experienced player who had played in the Premier League and understood what came with it. And I think the other thing that was very helpful, none of us had a clue about what would happen in the Premier League. None of us really thought about maybe getting paid more money or anything else like that, being on Match of the Day, or all the crazy things that happen when you're in the Premier League as compared to all the other things. It just kind of still was just a game. It was literally just a game. And the game, again, I was a little bit nervous on the bus on the way from the hotel, but the game was just, it was like playing in your living room. I was so comfortable and so kind of never entertained, really, that we wouldn't win. We just kind of, that was it. That was what we were going to do, and we did it. It's just, I can't explain it any different than that. We were well prepared. We had a team that was doing well. We had good players.
There's some experience in there as well, because you had Arms and
Brian Hughes, Richard Garcia, like say Wayne Brown, who played a lot of football, and that was why Rich and Brownie had been brought to the football club, because of their character and their experience. And they were both very good signings. Obviously, Brian Hughes as well, very good signing. So yeah, it was strange day. Me and Dorse in the Dorse had to do a drugs test after the game, I think. So he was stuck in now trying to have a wee for about an hour. And I remember him coming up to the lounge upstairs in Wembley after the game, and I looked at him and he went, "What's just happened there, pal?" I was like, "No, mate, it's class though, isn't it?" And that was it, really. We had a good party, good drink. I still had my kit on about 2 days later from the game, I think.
He didn't have a shower to wash off Wayne Brown's sweat when he just.
No.
So what was that summer like then? You said Brian Hughes was telling you about how things were going to change. How quickly did you start to notice it was changing for you? Was it immediate, or was it?
Well, I got married straight away after that. I went on international duty, and then I was pretty much back at pre-season, so I didn't have a lot of time really to think. We kind of it zoomed by, and again we were kind of getting ready for, as you do, you go back, you get ready for another season, and again
you're just taking it in your stride again.
Really, really excited. Well, I didn't understand what it was, so I wasn't scared of it. I was just excited, and later on down the line, kind of things got a bit more difficult. But in the short term, it was just kind of, wow, this is great. Let's enjoy it. Let's keep going. And that's pretty much the naivety of youth, inexperience, which is sometimes better really than the experience of defeat and what can go wrong.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting you say that, because with you saying that, the naivety of it and just keep going and building on it, in hindsight, you can see that in the way that the team performed, moving up from Championship and up until I think October, November, the way that we played was, with not reckless abandon as such, but like without fear.
Yeah, I think in some of the early games we got important goals at important times, but I think that probably some of the games, I remember counter-attacking against Liverpool, where an experienced team wouldn't dare do that now because you'd know what had happened. Whereas I don't think we were as scared as we should have been.
It took till about November for teams to work us out, though, didn't it? Because we were third at one point.
Sometimes that happens, though. Yeah. You'll see that happen again. I think it's the enthusiasm. People run that little bit harder.
Particularly that West Brom game.
And not with a freedom. With a freedom more than anything else.
I always refer to it because I remember it's one of the best. You always see over lockdown we've had lots of like City videos shared from the club and all of that, because obviously people need the football fix, don't we? Which is why we started this podcast in the first place, to be honest. But one of the things that when they do they replay the whole games, don't they? I know you did a watch along at some point. But they replay whole games at different weekends. And they did it where we won, I think it was in either October, November, we won 3-0 away at West Brom. They went down that season, I think. But it was just every single City fan at the end. All the players were walking off, and it was, what Brownie sung at the end is, "This is the best trip I've ever been on." That sort of stuff is just, it gives me like goose pimples looking at it and watching it again, because that was when people just couldn't believe what was happening to City, could they? I'm sure you're the same, Rich, because you'd have been at that game. I know you will.
Yeah, well, I was at the game, and I can just remember like turning to my dad and my brother and just being like, "What the fuck is going on?"
I remember after the game we played away at Arsenal, a load of people saying that to me, like literally, what has just happened there?
Giovanni.
Tottenham the same as well, really. Tottenham, that was quite an enjoyable.
Loved playing in London then, didn't we?
My uncle lives in North London, so he's around their fans all the time. I think he really enjoyed himself over those 2 weeks.
He couldn't do no wrong.
No.
Was there? Do you have any specific memories from that first season, or do you tend to remember the good games rather than the bad? I just think it's interesting to know that.
I definitely remember little things like that. The getting clapped off by Arsenal's fans was unimaginable as a lower league player turning up in the Premier League. You didn't. Little things like that. The biggest thing for me was the first game at Liverpool where you get clapped by the cop. That was ridiculous. That was. I never knew about that really until it was happening. I was kind of half looking around to see if there was someone behind me. To be honest, it was one of them things. That's kind of money can't buy feeling. That was worth it. Or that doing an interview the other week. My favourite moment of my footballing career was probably standing next to Steven Gerrard in the tunnel at Anfield, looking at him going, you just like say the players like that just look like cartoon characters. And you're saying when you see Ferguson for the first time, they just look like cartoon characters. They're like, you've seen them before. They don't quite look like what they look like on telly, but you know it's them. So it's just was real special.
So obviously that season we end up staying up, skin of our teeth, but we still stay up. Was there anything different the next season? Because obviously next season it kind of went a little bit, I don't want to say sour necessarily, but it was a little bit different, wasn't it? Struggled to get hold of big signings, and obviously then the chairman went, I think it was around October or November.
Yeah, before the Burnley game.
The Burnley game, and then obviously we only won, I think it was 5 games that season, 5 or 6 games, that was it. Was that in any way like a a low season for you, or was it still something where you were kind of? Yeah,
it was towards the end. I struggled really for confidence towards the end of that season. Like I say, with having lost so many games, similar, the opposite really to the season when we got promoted to the Championship the first time. It's very, very, very difficult to kind of save your way out of trouble in the Premier League. You have to. You have
we
to
had
be
no goal
kind of
scorers
bob on.
that season, really, did we? So you clean sheets.
No, I don't remember. It's very, very difficult to have. You have a goal scorer in the Premier League, and he's worth £20 million. It's hard. It's the hardest thing to do. So it's not like you can criticise a kind of team that's just been promoted for not having a striker that scores 20 goals because.
But so many teams don't anyway. You
only get
in top half of the league that can struggle for that. It's not just the newly promoted sides, is it?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But it's just it's a tough league, and you're never going to be free scoring. So I think what we probably needed to have done is adjust really the style of play a bit more to be a bit more pragmatic. But I kind of it was as good as it was in the first half of the first season. It was very, very tough in the second half of the second season. So it was just the polar opposite, really.
Of course, in that season, there's probably the best game that we ever saw you play for
Tottenham
us was the game at Tottenham.
Yeah.
How mad was that?
Yeah.
I'm speaking to my uncle about talking to you beforehand, and he wanted me to ask, and it's a little bit disrespectful and flippant, but what were you on?
I can imagine him saying that as well.
I don't know. Strange, really. Again, just one of them days. Dive the wrong way, saving it. Sometimes it happens. It happens. Probably only happened to me 2 or 3 times in my career to that extent. But you do have days where you think you just it just works. I think probably if you watch it back, there will be times when if I was their player's manager, I'd have been disappointed that he didn't score, to be honest with you. But
he was like, well, how the fuck has he saved all
of them? Yeah. But it just is what it was. Really enjoyable to be involved.
Was it mad watching the highlights, like match of the day? Did you ever do that? And like, I remember the package they put together, compiled all your saves. That must have been surreal in a way.
Yeah, again, similar. Just they're little things that you don't understand are going to happen when you get to that league. It's just all part and parcel of what is the Premier League. It can be absolutely brilliant, but again, like I say, going back to the other side, it can be really tough as well when things are not going, because you look at the fixture list and who you've got to play, and somehow you've got to get X amount of points, and like I say, you keep doing that for 2 or 3 months, and it becomes very difficult. So it's as good as the good bits are. The tough bits are really tough.
So that's maybe
something
that you look back on more once you've done, rather than at the time sort of reflect on it.
It was enjoyable. I think we met on a kind of mid-season break after that, if I remember correctly. So it was kind of just we were kind of training quite hard for the next few days. So it wasn't, and we were in a different country, so I don't think it wasn't on the telly over there. So not really. Well, it wasn't that good.
Because that kind of brings your City career to like the end of the twilight of your career, really, because you left in 2010, didn't you? Was it a tough decision to move at the time? Like, do you look back on it and think that was a hard thing to do, or do you think it had naturally kind of come to a conclusion where you think, I want to kind of move on and try somewhere else?
A little bit of that, yeah. I'm not going to lie. After I found the second part of that season very tough. Coupled with that, actually, to be honest, the club was in dire financial troubles. Really, I think I remember training in pre-season, not training very well at all. It was awful, and got in off the training ground and got called in to kind of speak to the manager, and I had a load of phone calls from my agent, and then they was like, "Oh, we've accepted a bid for you from West Brom, over to you kind of thing. You have to speak to them. And it was tough really because, like I say, going back to my opening bit, it was the most enjoyable part of my career as a player. Really,
it's over 250
played a lot of
games for us that you played.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often, so it's to be enjoyed. But it was, like I say, we'd been in administration at the time. We'd kind of when it came down to me actually leaving the club, I was owed quite a lot of money, and they'd actually chopped our wages for the final 2 or 3 months of the Premier League season, where we weren't getting paid full wages, and I was kind of told, we need the money and you can go, but we won't be paying you back the money that we've took out your salary, kind of thing. And it was just purely the administrators, I think, trying to kind of get the club on an even keel. So it wasn't. It kind of the idea of going to West Brom to play in the Premier League, hopefully again, was massive, and obviously it was probably good for the club as well because it wasn't in a very good shape at the time. So it was a strange time, really.
Because obviously, go on, sorry, Rich.
No, sorry, you go. You're all right.
You go to West Brom, and actually, apart from a loan to Birmingham, I think you stayed at West Brom for like 9 years, didn't you? Because I know you're still there now, but you're as a coach, aren't you? So you retired last year.
Yeah.
Has that become kind of a home from home again for you? Because I know you brought up in Wales, but that kind of area, did you feel at home there? Because you didn't play as many games, did you?
No, I've lived in Birmingham. No, I've lived in Birmingham more than I've lived anywhere else now, by a good way. I mean, it's just, again, it was similar really to Hull. It's a good group of players with similar kind of values. Very, very similar to Hull, to be honest with you. And it's just nice to be a part of, going into work every day with people who you can kind of identify with. And there's a lot of kind of Chris Brunson, James Morrison, Jonas Olsons, who kind of just very normal people. So it was. I enjoyed going to work there. I still enjoy going to work there. It's very similar to Club to Hull, to be honest with you.
Things and
kind of close knit club. I mean the infrastructure of kind of the people who you come across in the clubs. It's just it's a nice place to go to work. So I honestly I kind of nearly left West Brom a couple of times, but it just never worked. No, it worked out one way or another. But it's like I say, I've enjoyed going to work. I've not played as much football as I would have liked. I've played in some good games. Like I say, I've won at Old Trafford twice playing there. Played some real kind of enjoyable games. And it's just like I say, I've met again, same as here really. I met a lot of people there. Ben Foster, I'm really good friends with. Scott Carson, really good friends with. So it's like people like that who you just enjoy. Kind of, I was always happy. My wife's from Birmingham anyway, so it's worked from a family point of view as well. So it's been an enjoyable place to work. Although, like I say, I've not played as many games as I would have liked, but that is what it is.
You said that there was a chance where you might have left West Brom a couple of times, and I can remember you being linked back with City at various points, and whether that was paper talk, I don't know. Was there ever a chance that you would come back?
No, nobody ever spoke to me from the club ever again. No. It was always strange playing against. I got to be honest with you. As much as I was excited going up, it just feels weird playing against Hull. I didn't play. Did it for Birmingham, and like I say, I found it very strange. The away game of the season when I was at Birmingham, I was injured, and even I almost felt like I was more of a Hull player than a Birmingham player when I was playing. It was just
that's how I felt watching you play for Birmingham. It was
not right.
It didn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't feel at all comfortable. Went to go in the home dressing room when we played. All sorts. It's strange.
Obviously, now you're under. Was it under 23s? Is it? What's your official title to do with goalkeeping?
Just the professional development phase. So from under 23s, under 18s, just kind of get them on the pathway towards training with Gary Walsh in the first
Is that
team.
something you're looking towards, like
goalkeepers?
Moving up in your career now that obviously you've retired, but do you want to go into coaching and be a manager? Yeah,
that's what I'll do now. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Yeah, I found it strange being out of work for a month. It's the first time I've been out of work since I was 16. I didn't like it. It's just a strange feeling. And I was lucky, really, because at the end of the season, when I retired, I'd had a broken finger, so I was rehabbing my broken finger at West Brom. And the goalkeeper coach that does the job I do now left to go to Aston Villa, and Walshy came in. I was like, "All right, pal." He's like, "Yeah, good." He goes, "Oh, this has happened. Do you want to do this job?" And I was kind of thinking about trying to get another playing job. And I said, "Yeah, go on then," kind of thing. And I was sat on a bike doing a bike session, and it was just lucky, really. Again, similar to kind of the way it worked with Hull, just right place, right time. I mean, how often does that happen where somebody leaves on a day, you're getting treatment because you're injured, you're out of contract, and just really basically the right place at the right time. So it's good. Yeah, similar really. Yeah. So I've really enjoyed it. I found it hard at times. The days are a lot longer. But it's something that I'm definitely keen to do. I like being involved with football.
Yeah.
It gives me kind of structure. It's the only thing really I know about. I can't speak intelligently about anything else. So, I can't. So, at least I half know what I'm talking about when it comes to football. Some of the other, I've no idea really what else I would do. So yeah, it's been enjoyable, and like I say, I'm long way to continue. Really,
that's, probably final question or topic we'll hit on the current state of things. The suspension of the football season. They're talking about it coming back. Obviously, at West Brom, they'll be desperate for it to restart again. What do you think's going to happen? What's the mood around the place like?
I'm actually on furlough at the minute. I'm not allowed to work, so we're not allowed anywhere near the training ground. What we were doing was, we had, up until we got put on furlough, I was taking the goalkeepers. Basically, I was going to the training ground, recording myself doing exercises on my own to start off with, and then with somebody who could kick balls at me, so that in a 6-yard space that everyone could do in a back garden or in a park. And we basically did that for 6 weeks. And then it got to the stage where they cancelled our league. We worked for another week, in a similar way. And then we moved to just this furlough situation. So I do worry. I worry for a lot of the teams lower down. I keep hearing Gary Neville say that the Premier League's going to have to do something, and I do think that will have to happen, but I worry about a lot of the out-of-contract players this season. It's not going to be. I think the clubs are going to be a lot more powerful now. I think the player power kind of side of things will die down massively now.
It's going to be a uncertain few weeks, isn't it? I think there's not going to be anything where we can quickly fix this. To see how it goes, I suppose.
It will change the game. I think it'll change the shape of the game.
It'll have to.
Well, I've watched the Kitman disinfecting balls.
I mean, I don't know about you lads. I watched the Dortmund game at the weekend, and seeing the subs all sitting 6 feet apart from each other, and players aren't allowed to celebrate properly and stuff like that. Whether it's in the short term and the long term, things like that, it will change the game a little bit. And I'm not convinced it's going to be for the better. Obviously, we can't help that, but it is weird.
It is very strange, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know how the teams outside of the Premier League are going to make money, because as I understand, minimum it'll be Christmas time before.
Yeah. So many of the clubs lower down just need that gate revenue, don't they? So it's not something that is. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be an easy fix, is it? There's going to be other clubs that go Berry's way, I think.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. Unless, but it's almost going to have to take people giving a massive share of clubs, giving a massive share of their television money, of stuff like that.
But how likely is that to happen? When you see like Man United losing out on 28 million quid already because of what's happened, it's like, how much more are they going to want to lose off what they've been banking on getting?
So well, I didn't want to really end on a depressing topic, but
no, I just wanted to touch on it. I was just interested because
it's such a current thing. It's interesting to get players' perspectives on it, really.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I'm glad I'm not a player now. I would find it. The original plan was to start back in the middle of June, wasn't it? And to sum it up, you look at, they will have had 13 weeks, I think what it was. I worked it out from game to game. And they were planning on having a 2-week pre-season, which now you're supposed to play at a good level after that.
Well, it's not enough, really, when you think you'd have a month after 6 weeks off in a normal year.
Yeah. So it's not safe, really, from a fitness point of view. The quality of football, I think, would be nowhere near the level.
There's pre-season friendlies, are they? And it's going to be that sort of standard because players aren't going to be fit.
No. I don't know how they can do it fairly by not.
No, I don't think there's any other way to do it. They either whether they wait till it's safe. I think they have to do it on the pitch.
Yeah, I don't understand, and I've said this a lot. I don't understand what the desperation is to cancel this season to start a season that hasn't started yet. I don't understand why they don't take as long as it takes to finish this season safely. It will have something to do with money.
The other thing is contract.
I just don't know what it is.
End of June. Do you then just extend that contract month by month as needed, or then players finding other? Then you bring agents into it. It's such a minefield, isn't it?
Was it Igalo has said today he's not going back to Bournemouth when his contract expires at the end of June or whatever? So there'd probably be issues like that all over the leagues.
Yeah, it's again, you're talking about clubs doing the right thing, but at some stage as well, the players have got to do. It's going to have to be a very kind of ethical, really, rather than a selfish professional decision. But
it is.
It's difficult to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. Right, Boaz, thank you for your time. It's so kind of you to give up your time and speak to us.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Boaz.
I'm about to start stretching.
Good luck with your run later on, I would say, your midnight run.
Thank you.
I'm sure there'll be a few other episodes in later seasons. If you ever want to come back on, it'd be great to have, once we get some football back, it'd be great to have some insight from people who are actually still in the game as well.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk to you again soon. Great stuff.
Okay.
Thank you, Boaz.
Cheers, thanks very much.
Good to talk to you.
Bye.
Cheers, lads.
All right. We want to thank Boaz for giving up his time and talking to us. Good chat, wasn't it, Rich, that one?
I enjoyed that, yeah. Yeah, it's a different kind of chat as well, which was, from what we've had in the last couple of weeks. It was nice. It was good to pick his brain, and I don't know, I just find it interesting how much he seems to take it all in his stride.
Yeah, well, we seem to have a lot of either strikers or midfielders on. That's all we've had, really, isn't it? So far.
Yeah.
Because we started off with Laurie Dudfield, who was is a forward. Then we had Rodney, striker. Then we had Ryan, winger. So they're all, and then obviously recently there's been Fags and Furlan, and then Stuart Green. So there's been a lot of forward players. It's a different experience being a goalkeeper, but it was an interesting chat nonetheless. Great guy, Boaz. Obviously,
to do a 4-mile run at midnight.
Rather him than me.
I know, I'm going to bed.
Definitely. Not something I'll be doing. If I go for a run, it's in the morning.
Yeah, and even then, it's like
not with the weather currently.
Midnight, I'd be thinking, I might just have a beer.
Yeah, definitely. Much rather a beer than a run.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously,
it shows in my physique.
Oh, don't. Especially giving up playing and then not doing as many running. Just it's not good for anybody's physique, is it? Lockdown.
No, but I'm enjoying myself anyway.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, isn't it?
We've had our fun.
That's
all that matters.
Indeed. We've got to get that reference in somewhere. Obviously, on social media, there's a lot of people are showing interest, which is really good. I think Twitter actually is probably the most active.
Yes,
it's the easiest one to use, I think, in that respect for the podcast. So we're at Tigers Bar on Twitter. If there's any specific guests you want to hear from, because obviously we can't promise anything, but I have my go-betweens. Brendan Smurthwaite has been brilliant, trying to be the go-between between some of the players and me and Rich then interviewing them. I will obviously we'll try and do any of the requests that you've got and try and process it that way and see if we can get any big guests on. But any requests of guests
or topics that you want us to talk about,
yeah.
We don't have to interview everyone every week. If
that's true,
if there's anything you want to hear about, it's just nice to hear from people. It's good to hear that people appreciate what we're doing and we're enjoying it as much as we are.
It is good. I think, well, when this episode is published, I know we've broken the 1,000 mark because we're very nearly there now. I think Caleb Folan's episode last week that was published, that was one of the main factors in that being because that's on 100 views and it's not quite a week since that we've put that up. So
Folan's doing bits.
Big. Do you know? Interestingly, do you know who the most popular one is? Rodney is the most listened to out of all the players.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But obviously, that it was one of the first ones we did. But the amount of depth that he went.
Well, maybe that just means that the number of people who listen to that one are just thinking, "Nah, I don't want to listen to these two idiots interview players."
Well, maybe
I'm not listening to that again.
Yeah, 4 episodes just and go nah.
Yeah, massive drop off.
But yeah, any shouts on that or any requests or just topics you want to discuss, just give us a shout on Tigers Blah on Twitter. And then you can...
even if you just want to chat about what your favourite City kit is, we'll always indulge.
I mean, Rich, he's a certified kit geek. He says it himself, but I do love a shirt chat. So if you want to do that, by all means. Ordered a couple of old kits myself recently, Rich. You'll know that one. I got the Romford Rejects one. Got that one, and then I also got the 98-99 home shirt recently, which
in adult sizes.
Well, it's actually a small adult, and it fits me perfectly. I do. It's one I've been looking at recently. Is I think it's 97-98 away. Is that or maybe no 98-99 away, the white one. But I think that only comes in 3XL.
I think you pay a pretty penny for it as well.
There's anyone know where I can get a cheap one of them? Let me know on Twitter. But I don't think that's going to happen, is it? To be honest.
Yeah, you might.
That'll be a 200 quidder on eBay. That I think.
Looking for a cheap one of those shirts will be like looking for rocking horse shit, mate.
Well, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I've bought an Ashby Premier League shirt and I've completed my set of kits from this year. I've got the white away one since they're 20 quid. Nice. And since we're all watching Bundesliga, new Dortmund shirts coming as well.
I saw you'd done that. I saw that on your Twitter.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's only one active football now, so there we go.
Lifelong diehard Dortmund fan, definitely. Nudge,
on loan to Dortmund for the season. Thanks for listening. Make sure you share, subscribe, and everything else. And we'll speak to you again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Talk to you soon.
See you in a bit.